Can you see my screen, Michael?
Yeah, I can now.
Okay. All right, perfect. Okay, so welcome to our final webinar of this class. Week 7 always brings about our final webinar because week 8 is so short. So we're going to cover everything that we need to talk about to get you through the final and to get you through the rest of the class. So now, with that said, if you have any questions between now and the end of class, please, please, please email me, text me, do whatever we need to do to make sure that you get a hold of me. So let's just start with the administrative stuff first. I did get a lot of papers, extra credit papers, so I am in the process of reading through those and hope to have those fully graded and applied by probably no later than Saturday. I also have a paper due myself tomorrow, so once I get that finished, I'll be able to dedicate more time to reading. So far everybody's doing really well with the papers, and I'm glad to see that everybody that I've read so far really learned a lot and used a lot of opportunity to kind of find out what the real accounting world is about out there with the ERP software. So good job on those. Let's see what else. So with this, I've also made the final exam available for you as of right now. So you can go out there and pull down the final exam. You're actually seeing it on my screen right now. It is a Word document, take-home Word document. I would like for you to complete this in Excel, okay? So please don't give me a Word document. There's been a couple people that have submitted homework in Word documents, and I'm taking points off for that. So don't give me a Word document. Do it in Excel. I need to see your calculations. So please, 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 please make sure you pay attention to that. I don't want to have to take off points for it being in Excel or for it being in Word, okay? And I will, because I won't be able to see your calculations. I want to see your formulas and things like that in Excel. I want to be able to see how you work the problems out. I want to understand that so that I can give you partial credit. That's one of the reasons why I ask you to do everything in Excel, because I can give you credit if I can see your thought process and see, as I've said before, if it was just a simple math error, okay? So please, please do it in Excel. If you do it in Word and you wait until the very last minute and it gets turned in Word, I'll have to take points off. If you do it in Word and you turn it in before the deadline, I'll ask you to redo it, okay, in Excel. All right, so just want to make sure that we're clear on that. The final is not cumulative, but it is cumulative. So in other words, you have to know everything that we've done up until this point in order to do the problems that are on this exam. So if there's something that you don't understand, you need to ask, okay? Now, on the final, I cannot tell you how to do the problems, okay? So let me be very clear about that. If there's something that you don't understand the wording and need clarification on the wording, I can do that. But I cannot tell you, yeah, you need to do a bank rec for this, or, yeah, you need to add this or put this in there or what have you, or you're missing this line. I can't tell you that, okay? So the final exam is all on you. Now, the best way for you to complete this is to print off all of your homework answer keys, okay? So I would take those and use those as, how do I do these problems? What's a good example of these problems? So if you go back and you look at it and you say, oh, well, number 1 is a lot like a bank reconciliation. Let me go back and find out how I did my bank reconciliation back on, chapter whatever. Okay? So that is going to help you tremendously. Please do that. Please, please, please do that. Okay? Take your time. Work 1 or 2 of these problems a night. You have plenty of time to do that. Okay? There are a total of, I think, 14 problems. Right? No, it's not gonna. Yep, 14 problems. Okay? So if you work 2 a night between now and the end of class, you'll actually be done a day early. So that'll give you some time to go back through and check everything, make sure you didn't miss something or didn't forget something, and it's not putting a huge burden on you to get all of this done in one night. I guarantee you, if you wait until Thursday night to work this final exam, I will be able to tell, and you will not make a good grade on it. So you need to take time on this. You need to make sure that you're looking the problems up and that you're answering them completely and that you're doing everything you need to do. Please, take my word on this. Start tomorrow night, okay? Start working the problems that you can work. All right? So, anybody have any questions on that? Michael?
No.
Cool. All right. So the final's out there. You guys get started on that. Let's go to any questions about the current module or the upcoming module. Okay. All right. Chapter 11 is just the stockholders' equity section. Okay. And the best example of stockholders' equity is, so here's the statement of retained earnings. I'm going to shrink this. Okay. Here's the statement of retained earnings. So that's a good example. Mark that. That's Exhibit 11.3 on page 520. Statement of stockholders' equity is on 521, Exhibit 11.4. Okay? So make sure you're using these 2 examples to do your problems. Okay? And I know on the one homework problem, let me see which one that is. So on the first, no, I'm sorry, the second homework problem, P11-2A, it's asking you to do a statement of stockholders' equity. So make sure you're paying attention to the paid-in capital in excess of par value, okay, and that you're calculating that correctly. And really follow that stuff down. You have to make sure that, like in B, where it says percent of preferred stock, it gives you more information than you need. Okay, so for instance, when it says 25,000 shares were authorized, that's information that you don't need for that. Okay, you need the par value, which is $50, and you need 6,000 shares issued. Okay, the only thing that matters is the shares issued. Remember that. Okay, the only thing that matters are shares issued. We don't care how many were authorized, because until they're issued, they don't count. Okay? So just make sure you remember that and pay attention to that. Otherwise, your numbers could get off. All Alright, so let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Statement of cash flows is really pretty simple. The indirect method, and so there's really not anything tricky about that. Cash flows from operating activities. Just make sure that okay, so the one thing about statement of cash flows that I do want to mention, so like in exercise 12-4B, you actually have a net loss. So that means you're starting with a negative number, which is negative 21,000. Okay? And then you're going to add or deduct items to convert the net loss to cash basis. So like for instance, depreciation. You're going to add that. Okay? So it'd be 21,000 plus 8,600, which will basically get you closer to zero, right? And then the accounts receivable decrease is actually adding it. Okay? So that's again a positive 9,000. And then inventory decrease, again, that's adding it. Okay? The only thing that is actually going to be subtracted from that negative 21,000 is an accounts liabilities decrease. Okay? So you should come up at the end of that cash provided by operating activities should be a positive number. So you start with a negative and you should come up with a positive number. All right? The next one is just merely adding up two numbers, and or actually it's subtracting two numbers. So you should be able to come up with that one pretty easy. Okay. 12.1a, you're actually going to do a full-fledged statement of cash flows. So let's go over to chapter 12. I want to show you what a statement of cash flows looks like. This is where cash flows from operating activities starts on page 555, and so here's the preparing the statement of cash flows using the indirect method. This is where you're going to be using this in page 12.1a, P12.1a. So this indirect method. And if you need it, here's an excellent example of the financial data for this company for an income statement and a balance sheet. So if you need it as a reference, instead of going back to one of the first chapters that we studied, here's an income statement and a balance sheet. Okay, it's a brief one, but nevertheless an example. So 5 steps to preparing a statement of cash flows. I can't say this enough. Follow the steps. Don't skip them. Follow them word for word. Okay? So here's basically what it looks like. This is the indirect method. So you've got the beginning of the year, you've got the end of your year, you've got the change, and figuring that then gives you, is it a cash flow classification. So you need to know this. You need to know whether or not it's operating cash flows, investing, or investing/operating, which is determined by the company, again, and financing, right? So common stocks considered financing. If you take out a loan, so if you're borrowing, that's financing, right? So this is your first step, is figuring this out. Step 2, you've got to identify the business activity category, which is this right here, right? Then this kind of gives you a general overview. If it's current assets, it's operating income. Non-current is either investing or operating. Current liabilities is operating. Non-current is financing. Capital stock is financing, and retained earnings is a combination. Okay? Step 3, you build the preliminary statement using the calculated increases or decreases from the balance sheet accounts, right? So here's step 3 in Exhibit 12.4. Step 4, we have used the balance sheet to exclusively provide the needed inputs. Okay, so now we introduce the operations related data found on the company's income statement. So you basically work with the balance sheet first, then you work with the income statement. Okay, so the income statement is going to bring over your net income, right, and help you get your retained earnings. Okay, you've got your depreciation expense, that's also playing into this. Okay, so you bring all of that over in here to get your cash provided by operating activities, your cash by investing, and then cash at the end of the year. Oh, and here's financing, sorry. Okay, and then you do your net increase in cash, cash at the beginning of the year, and cash at the end of the year. Okay? Step 5, you make any appropriate adjustments to the operating activities section to calculate the company's operating cash flow. Okay? So it gives you some examples of that. So here's the 5 steps, right, in preparing your statement of cash flows. Okay? And so this is what it looks like once you are done. You've got the income statement, the balance sheet, and you prepare the statement of cash flows. Okay? This talks about analyzing your cash flows, getting the free cash flows, right? So it's basically cash flow from operating activities, so only that one section minus any capital expenditures, and that's your free cash flow. So that's a pretty easy formula. Then you've got some ratios in here and stuff like that, which in Chapter 13 you're going to see a whole lot of ratios to analyze a company. Okay, so let's just talk about that real quick. Chapter 13 is where you get into all of your analysis. Okay, so this is where you get into analyzing what has happened at this company. This is probably one of my favorite chapters because I'm big on doing analysis. Okay, so this is going to help you. This is where this chapter teaches you how to analyze what's happening in a company. So this will help you even in your own life when you're investing. You can actually go in and look at that company's income statement, balance sheet, comparative analysis like year over year. For instance, we've got 2010 versus 2011. What's the change? You can do this on your own with a company that you're interested in investing in. You can even do it for the company that you're working for if you have access to their financials, right? So this is insanely beneficial to anyone. If you want to know, for instance, say you have the opportunity to get a job somewhere, I would absolutely see if I can find a way to get my hands on their income statement and their balance sheet and statement of cash flows and see what they're doing. Figure it out. Make sure that it's going to be a good company to work for, because believe me, there are a lot of companies out there that, you wonder how they get by day to day. Really. Plus, it's also an excellent indication of management. Do you have a good management team there? Right? So this chapter is one of my favorites. It's mostly just teaching you how to analyze these companies. Trend analysis, looking at year over year over year. Like, for instance, first thing I see here is 2007, 2008, they grew, but then they dropped back off, right? But their income's increasing. Then they went back up a little bit, but their income decreased, which means they spent more money. and their income continues to increase even though their sales also, or their income continues to decrease even though their sales increased by 2011. So that indicates to me that maybe management's not doing the best job, right, of, managing their money. Expenses are getting higher and their sales aren't increasing at the same rate that expenses are growing. So that can be a problem. That's just me. You can do this in a few seconds when you really start looking at things like this. Okay? It takes a lot of practice, but eventually you'll get there. So also look at their balance sheets. It tells you how to do horizontal and vertical analysis. So this is the vertical analysis side. So how do the relationships within the company's income statement and balance sheet compare to those over prior years, right? So you're going to take a look at ratio analysis in vertical, all right? So analyzing firm profitability, and here, mark this page 613. You will need this not only in this class for your final, but also in any finance classes that you take. If you're wondering how you can utilize these books after they're done, if you keep them, this page right here will help you tremendously with your finance classes, okay? Because finance classes do a lot of analysis, okay? And you need these formulas. So if nothing else, make a photocopy of this, put it someplace that you're going to have it for a long-term reference, because this is one of the best key financial ratio charts that I've seen. It gives you not only the ratio, it gives you the formula, and then it tells you what that ratio is doing. Okay? So make sure you hang on to this. This is page 613. It's extremely important to you in your business degree. Okay? All right, so then it just goes back through and, shows you how to calculate everything. So that's basically chapter 13. Does anybody have any questions? Who joined me? Oh, a bunch of people. All right. Hey, guys. All right, so what else? What other questions do you have for me? Anyone? Kason, Liz, Melissa? I know you guys joined. Is there anything from previous chapters you don't understand or you want me to cover? Homework from previous chapters, maybe you don't understand something? Don't be shy, because I can tell you if you don't understand it, somebody else may not either.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so on these homework problems that we have for chapter 11, 12, and 13, will we be able to go ahead and get those turned in so that we can see the solutions before during the week of while we're doing our exam?
Yes. So 11 and 12 will be available Friday like they usually are. Okay. And 13 will be available Monday, because I'm glad you brought that up. Monday, they'll be available Tuesday, I'm sorry. Monday, your homework for chapter 13 is due. Okay? So you don't have all week to do it. So please make sure that you get that turned in on Monday. The due dates are set out in the syllabus, and it also says that as well on the in the module, what the due date is. But I just want to make sure that everybody's read that and understands the last module, Module 8 homework, which is chapter 13 only, is due Monday, because we have a short week next week. Okay? So, yes, it will be available, and what I will try to do for you guys is when you get it turned in, I will go ahead and email you the solution set. so that you have it right away to review. Okay? Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay. I'm really glad you brought that up because I meant to mention that earlier. What else? What else can I help with? What I'm looking for on the final exam is for you to fully work out the problems and show me that you know what you're doing on them. And just understand, the more work you show me, the more partial credit you will likely get. Okay? So it's not an all or nothing deal like the midterm was. It's, show me your work, let me give you partial credit. Okay? And please, 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 please do not skip a problem. Make sure you've done all 14 problems, even if you have no clue what you're supposed to do. Please make an attempt. And if you want, the one thing that I will do for you to try to make sure that you're successful on the final, if you say, I am completely lost on problem number 2, can you point me in the right direction of an example? I will point you in the right direction of an example, but I will not tell you how to do the problem. Fair enough? Kaysen's asking, we didn't happen to cover problem 11-2A and problem 12-1A already, did we? No, we haven't, but we can. And Melissa asked, the final is due on Monday as well? No, the final is due on Thursday by 11:59 p.m. If I get it at 12 a.m., it's late and I can't accept it. So make sure, Melissa, I told everybody on this too, do 2 problems a night. Don't subject yourself to trying to do all 14 problems Thursday night because you will do very poorly. Okay? Do 2 problems a night until you finish it. If you start tomorrow night, that still puts you finished by next Wednesday, and then you have Thursday to go back and check your work. Okay? So please try to do 2 problems a night. Alright? Alright, so Kaysen, I'm going to go ahead and talk about P11-2A. So, let's see. P11-2A, it starts off with the journal. Did you have any questions about the journal, Kaysen? Is that one okay? Okay. All right. So then the next part of it is the stockholders' equity. So we did kind of touch on this. Part of the thing that will get most students on the section B of this, where they're having to do the paid-in capital, is that they don't realize that there's too much information given. So what I mean by that is, let's go to chapter 11. Let's actually go to the problem. So here it's telling you that with an authorization of 25,000 shares of 6%, $50 par value preferred stock, and 200,000 shares of $5 par value common stock, right? So then you come down here and it says that they issued 80,000 shares of common stock at 15 per share. that they issued 2,000 shares of common stock to attorneys and promoters in exchange for their services. They were valued at $31,000, right? It's giving you all of this information, and it wants you to prepare the journal entry to record the above transactions and then prepare the stockholders' equity section of the balance sheet, assuming that the net income for April is $49,000. So what you're going to do, I'm opening up an Excel file here. Hang on just a minute. Alright, so what you're going to do is you're going to say, you're going to have your description over here of what's going on, right? So the first thing that you want to do with this paid-in capital is figure out what 6% preferred stock, $50 par value, 25,000 shares authorized, and then 6,000 shares outstanding. So let's see where that is. Okay, so they issued right here, it says 6,000 shares of preferred stock for cash at $55 per share. So, but you have to pay attention to the par value, not what's listed here. So this is a very confusing problem. I get it. Alright, so all you're concerned with here is the fact that they issued at par value $50, right? And they had 6,000 shares that they issued. We don't care about the 25,000 authorized. All right? I touched on this earlier a little bit. We do not care about the 25,000 authorized. So I'm going to say PS, which is preferred stock, issued. All right? So with that, you're going to multiply those two to get the value, which is $300,000. Right? And then you're going to come down and you're going to do the same thing for common stock. You got to figure out what was actually issued, right? So there were 200,000 shares authorized, but there were only 85,000 outstanding, okay? And we get that by looking at these three transactions. So you've got 80,000, 2,000, and 3,000. Make sense? So that's where you get the 85,000. So 85,000 shares at $5 par value, right? So you multiply those two together, you get 425, right? So then you got to add those two up, okay, to get your total, right? And then you've got to work the additional paid-in capital. Okay? So I'm just going to put the words total here because you got to total that. All right? So the paid-in capital in excess of par value for preferred stock, right? So paid-in capital in excess of par value for the preferred stock, okay? That is going to be what? Because here's where that comes in. It says that they issued that preferred stock. Where did I see this? No, see this. Oh, right here. At $55 per share. So there, we only said that the par value, again, right here, is $50. So they paid in capital $5 more per share. So what you have to do there is take that $5 difference paid and multiply it by 6,000 shares. So that should give you $30,000, right? Oops, not 32. 30. Then you've got to do the same thing for common stock, right? So for common stock, again, you come back to the problem, and you have to look at what they paid, shares of common stock, so it gives you several different ways here, okay? So this is common stock that they paid at $15 per share. So you're going to have several calculations here. So they paid $10 more than what they should have, right? So you've got to figure that one out. Then you come down here and 2,000 more shares were valued at $31,000. So you have to divide those two, right? So divide the 2,000 by the 31,000, figure out what the value per was, and then subtract it from the 5. So it works out something like this. So if you do 31,000 divided by 2,000 equals $15.50 per share, and we know we paid, or we should have only paid 5, so that's going to say we did 15.5 minus 5, so we paid 10.5 more times 2,000 shares. So you multiply that times that, and it's going to give you $21,000. So you're going to add that together with what you got for the 80,000, the $10 here, right? So 80,000 times 10 plus this 21,000 plus you've got one more here where you've got to do the same thing that you did in this one and get the what the price was and then subtract it out. Does that all make sense? And then you're going to add, okay, then you're going to add all of those up to get the total paid in capital excess of par value, okay? And that's for the common stock. Then you add the common and the preferred paid in excess together to get another number, and you're going to add the amount that you paid up here, up in the first part. So this one, you're going to add the total of whatever you get down here when you calculate that. You're going to add those two together, right? And then there's one more thing that you have to add in, and it's very important. You have to add in that retained earnings that they give you, which is $49,000, right? And so then you're going to add retained earnings plus this total, and that's going to give you your total stockholders' equity. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Anybody have any questions on that part? Okay. All right, and case in the other problem was P12-1A. Okay. So P12-1A is just asking you to do the statement of cash flows. You're literally taking the cash at December 31st, 2013, and subtracting out the ending balance, or the cash at December 31st, 2012, and that's giving you the cash increase during 2013, which it's two numbers. You subtract them out. Okay, So then to get your supporting computations, you have adjustments to convert the net income of 56 to a cash provided by operating activities of a certain amount, right? And then you're basically going to be creating the statement of cash flows, okay? And so it looks, just a minute. I don't know if I can get, yeah, all right. So it's going to look something like this with the descriptions, okay? So that is everything that you need in the statement of cash flows, okay? And you should have that in chapter 12. Let's go to that problem. Okay, so it's giving you the income statement, the balance sheet, and everything that you need to compute all of that stuff, okay? So keep in mind what I had said earlier with this chapter, and I don't know if you were on yet, Kason, or not, but what I was saying earlier is in this chapter, where is it? Here we go. So page 556 down starts explaining to you how to calculate this, okay? And whenever you see these little triangles, that means the delta or the change, okay? So here's a good example of what you need to be able to do. Here's an income statement, here's a balance sheet. Same thing that's given to you for the problem later on, okay? There's 5 steps. You have to follow these steps step by step. You can't skip them. You need to work this out, and you need to show that work, okay? If you skip one of these steps, your problem will be wrong. I promise you, every single time. You have to use the steps, okay? So the first thing you do is you're going to create your balance sheet, and you're going to do the beginning of the year and what it was at the end of the year, and then you subtract those two and get your change, right? So, and you see here, you have to pay attention to the direction that those numbers go. So like at the beginning of the year, if your inventory balance was higher than what it was at the end of the year, that is a negative number. Okay, so you have to pay attention to that. The next part is classifying it. Was it an operating, investing, or financing activity? Okay, and that is very well explained right here. Okay, this next page. So right here tells you current assets are always going to be operating activities. Non-current assets can either be investing or operating activities. Okay, current liabilities, always operating. Non-current liabilities are financing. Capital stock is financing. Retained earnings can be operating and financing. Okay? So you have to remember these. Mark this page. Make sure you use it as a reference. Okay? This is going to help you. So once you get done with that, then you're going to build this preliminary statement of cash flows. Let me minimize this so you can see it. You build this preliminary statement of cash flows using all of these numbers that you came up with up here, okay? So this is going to help you to build this down here. You can literally see where the numbers come from, okay? So like this accounts payable 19,000, all right? Or I'm sorry, you see here the change, the 9,000 change. Oops. oops, I went up too far. So there's the 9,000 in change, right? Your retained earnings are typically given to you, so that's how that starts out, okay? So they tell you figure, or you've been given usually these retained earnings, and then you start putting these down, okay? But you have to pay attention to the signs, all right? Some of them flip, so be very careful on that, okay? It's not exactly what you think. So like accounts receivable, for instance. Accounts receivable up here is 5,000. Okay, it gained 5,000. Okay, that is not a good thing. That means more people owe you money. So here, you flip it. Does that make sense? Do you see that? You have to think about this logically. Okay, inventory. You're adding 6,000. Why? Because up here, your inventory decreased. So you're literally putting the opposite. If your inventory decreased, that's taking away, right? So you're adding 6,000 to your retained earnings, because if your inventory decreased, that means you sold it, right? So you have to think about things in these terms. Prepaid insurance, you're decreasing by 13,000. Prepaid insurance, it increased by 17. Why is that an increase or a decrease over on the other one? Because that's money that came out of your cash. So that's money you no longer have. Okay? So just keep following this down from one section to the next. Okay? And you can see how it either increases or decreases. Use these two to do the same thing to that problem that you've been assigned over here. Okay? So, and then you can see cash flow from operating activities actually works out to 0 in this case. Okay? Investing activities shows you how to do those. Financing activities, here's your common stock. Okay? And you can see there's nothing else in the financing activities in that particular example, but I do want to draw your attention to the fact that there are other cash flow issues from financing activities, like the issuance of bonds payable, okay, or the payment of dividends. So you have to remember what types of things are financing activities, and that's talked about in the chapter. Okay, I can tell you anytime that you either issue stock, issue bonds, or take out loans, right, or pay interest on a loan, that is a financing activity. Okay, so you have to keep those in mind. All right, so these are the again, these are all of the ones that you're going to have on this particular problem. And then C, D, and E are just calculations. So, what other questions do you have on that? Kason, anything? Perfect. Anybody else have any questions on it? Guys, make sure you're still listening to my webinars too that I have done, because I go over all of these problems on there, and I know that they're long, they're extremely long, but I do go over the problems, and you'll want to make sure that you dedicate some time to listening to them so that you understand, a lot of what's going on. Let's see, what else? Anything else? I think the homework for Chapter 13 is actually relatively simple. It's not very long. I don't think there are a whole lot of problems. Let's see. Just real quick, check it. And I just want to make sure that you guys have everything. Yeah. there's only 2 problems. So chapter 13 is really, really very straightforward. It's just basically calculating a bunch of those ratios. So if you make note of that page that I referenced, you can probably do chapter 13 in less than an hour. So, okay. All right. Anything else? We good? Well, guys, it's been a pleasure working with you. Oh, one more thing I did fail to mention. I need you to go in and take your end of class survey as well. I'll put up an announcement about that. But please go into the course evaluation and do that. I always look for your feedback because I truly, if there's something I can do to improve the class for others or for you in managerial accounting, if you're with me, then, and I know, Kason, I saw the roster, you are. So if there's anything that I can do to improve to help you guys be more successful, anything like that, please let me know. I know these are very difficult subjects, so just keep that in mind, and please give me all the constructive feedback that you can. If everything was wonderful and you loved it and it was very helpful, please let me know that too. I love hearing the compliments. So keep in mind, yes, Case, and the webinars are extremely popular. Keep in mind that I cannot see your name associated with your survey at all, and I don't even get to see the surveys until I think it's like 2 weeks after final grades are posted. So you have nothing to worry about. Be honest. I want you to be honest because I want to know, if I'm doing a good job, if I need to improve, anything. So, and if there's something that can be done better to help you, please let us know because we really want to make sure that this online program is top-notch for everybody. So, keep that in mind too. Let us know how the book was, stuff like that. I do read every single comment that I get. So, again, really appreciate you guys filling those out, and so that we can use it to keep bettering the program for everyone. Okay? All right, y'all. Good luck on this final. Let me know if you have questions. You've done a great job. I've been extremely happy with both classes this semester. I know you can do it, and I know that you're all going to get through here, and we're going to have a lot of A's and B's, and just some more great work, and move on to managerial. Hopefully, I see you in managerial. Okay. All right. Y'all have a great week, and study hard, work hard. Let me know if you have questions. All right. Thanks a lot.